Please just pause for a second. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's not just news. It's not just content. It's a warning. This woman walked into a courthouse and told the judge, "He's going to kill me." She said it clearly, said it out loud. She had receipts, messages, videos, documents. She begged for help. 2 days later, she was lying face down in the street just outside that same courthouse. 5 bullets. In broad daylight, while people watched. Not in some abandoned alley. Not in the middle of the night. But right outside the building where she had just asked to be protected. The system knew. The sheriff knew. The judge knew. And they still let her walk out those doors alone. This isn't just a story. This is about how we fail women even when they do everything right. Welcome to Wedneessday Crime Gist, where we break down the cases nobody wants to talk about until it's too late. Here we don't just talk about hashtags. We talk about the lives that came before them. If you're tired of hearing, "We did everything we could," after another life is lost, subscribe now. Because the truth? They didn't do everything. They did nothing. And Krystal Evans paid the price. Most people only know her name because of the way she died. But Krystal Evans wasn't just a news story or a trending post. She was a mother, a business owner, a friend, a daughter. She was full of fire, full of love, and always doing for others. But long before her name was written in headlines, it was handwritten on birthday cards, payroll slips, school permission forms, and Sunday morning church programs. Because Krystal was alive and she was living. She was born in 1980 in Griffin, Georgia, a small southern town with a crime rate that's more than double the national average. A place where everybody seems to know each other, but somehow nobody knows what's really going on behind closed doors. Krystal grew up in that town, walked those same streets. She went to the local schools, attended local events, probably had the same teachers as the next generation. That's where she met Tom Mollieri. He wasn't just a stranger she bumped into as an adult. No, they'd known each other since they were kids. Same bus routes, same playgrounds. The kind of history that makes you feel like you can trust somebody. The kind of familiarity that blinds you to the red flags because you've already told yourself, "I know him." He'd never. In 2010, Krystal was 30 years old. She had plans, dreams, and drive. And she married Tom. Everyone said it looked like a good match. And at first, it did. The couple traveled, shared photos of vacations and events, posed with smiles that felt real. Not just social media deep. Real. Not long after, they had a daughter, Precious. And Krystal? She took that name to heart. Because the way she loved her child was intentional. She didn't just show up to school events, she planned them. She didn't just cook, she hosted. Family dinners, holiday parties, balloon-filled birthdays that looked like they came straight off a Pinterest board. She was that mom. But Krystal wasn't just raising a family. She was building a business. Together, she and Tom launched Mollieri TMK Contracting Incorporated, a construction company that started small but grew fast. The business carried Tom's name. But the backbone? That was Krystal. She handled the operations, the logistics, the accounting, the clients. She had that rare mix, tough but warm, smart but never cold. She could negotiate a building contract in the morning and still be home to serve dinner by 6. The kind of woman who gets things done without needing applause. From the outside, everything looked steady. Happy family, thriving business, beautiful home, a woman with purpose. But perfection has a way of hiding pain. And slowly the cracks started to show. Krystal didn't post angry rants. She wasn't dramatic. Instead, she made small posts online. Quiet ones. Little things about feeling invisible. Feeling disrespected. She never named names. Never made a scene. Just enough to let the world know something wasn't right. We all know that feeling, don't we? When someone you love starts making cryptic posts. They're not telling you directly, but they're telling you something. And deep down, Krystal was hoping things would get better. She was still trying to protect her daughter, trying to save the business, trying to salvage the life she'd built. In 2020, she even posted about how she and Tom had reconciled. She said God had restored their marriage, that she was choosing to forgive. But what Krystal didn't know, what none of us knew, was that Tom was hiding more than infidelity. And what she was about to discover, what she was about to expose, would change everything. For years, Krystal Evans believed that if she just held on a little longer, things would get better. She stayed quiet through the distance, through the disrespect, through the silence that grew louder with every passing week. At first, the changes were subtle. Tom stopped checking in during the day. He started working longer hours. He laughed less, snapped more. He was home but never really present. Krystal noticed. Of course she did. But instead of starting a fight, she tried to fix it. She prayed harder, posted hopeful quotes, focused on her daughter. Because in her mind, holding her family together wasn't just a choice, it was her job. But there's only so much glue one person can use before everything falls apart. And then it happened. Krystal found out Tom was cheating. Not just once. Not with someone from out of town or a fling he met at work. It was deeper than that. It was betrayal in layers. At first, she thought it was just one woman. Then she realized it wasn't women at all. Tom had been living a secret life with men. And it wasn't just the cheating. It was the fact that he was using money from the business she ran, their business, to fund it all. Money she earned was paying for hotel rooms, car notes, dinners, and vacations. While she was home helping their daughter with homework, this man was out playing a role in a second life she never signed up for. And when Krystal confronted him, he didn't deny it. Not really. Instead, the lies got messy. The stories didn't add up. The gaslighting started. And Krystal, who had spent years protecting his name, his image, his place in the community, decided she wasn't going to protect him anymore. She took her story to where it would be heard loudest: Facebook. But she didn't just vent. She brought proof. Audio clips of Tom arguing with one of his male partners. Screenshots of money transfers. Photos of gifts she never received. She laid it all out. In one post, she questioned how a wife, the person who built the home, raised the child, ran the business, could be the last to know. She listed the cars, the designer shoes, the trips, all bought for people living in the shadows. And the town saw it. People she went to church with, old classmates, family members, business clients, everyone. In a place like Griffin, Georgia, where secrets still carry weight, the post spread fast. And the reaction? It was split. Some people praised her for speaking up. Others were uncomfortable, unsure how to process the truth. But Tom? He was angry. Because Krystal had taken control of the story. She'd done what so many women are too scared to do: tell the truth out loud. And that's when the tone changed. See, Krystal had already survived the silence. But now she was stepping into something much more dangerous: exposure. And for someone like Tom, exposure wasn't just humiliating. It was unforgivable. She wasn't just leaving him. She was showing the world who he really was. And while Krystal thought she was reclaiming her voice, Tom was already planning how to silence it. After Krystal exposed Tom, she hoped that would be the end of it. She thought that maybe, just maybe, shining a light on his lies would make him go away. Move on. Live the life he'd been hiding behind her back. But she was wrong. Because the man who once used silence as his weapon now used presence. Too much presence. Terrifying, choking, constant presence. Tom wasn't trying to win her back. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't fighting for the marriage. What he started doing was showing up. Everywhere. First, it was the random pop-ups, pulling up outside her house and sitting there. Engine running. Lights off. Just watching. Then it became more direct. Following her. Waiting in places she visited. Driving by her daughter's school. She'd walk out of the grocery store and see his car parked across the lot. Sit at a red light and spot him in the rearview mirror. It was intentional. He wanted her to know. To feel it. He wasn't just stalking her. He was haunting her life while still breathing. And it got worse. So much worse. In 2019, a full 3 years before the divorce was even filed, Tom fired a gun outside Krystal's house. Not at someone. Not in a fight. Just a message. Loud. Echoing. A warning. Then he called the police and reported an active shooter, trying to flip the story. Trying to make it seem like she was the problem. Like maybe something else was going on. Like maybe the neighbors heard wrong. That wasn't just reckless. It was strategic. When lies don't work, some people try confusion. And Tom was trying to make everyone question reality, including Krystal. But she didn't back down. She started posting everything. Videos, photos, screenshots, timestamped posts. Tom was at my house today. Tom followed me again. Tom just threatened me. Not private messages to friends. Not whispered calls in the dark. Public posts. On her Facebook timeline. Over and over and over. Because Krystal believed that if something ever happened to her, the world would at least have the proof. But it didn't stop there. Tom stole her car. Not borrowed. Stole. She had to make a public post asking the community to be on the lookout. Imagine that. Being a grown woman, a business owner, a mother, and having to ask your neighbors to help find your own car. Because the man who used to sleep in your bed took it like it was his. When she finally got the car back, she had it repainted. New color. New energy. Trying to wash his presence off of something she still needed to survive. But he just kept escalating. Tom somehow got access to a notary stamp and used it to forge a deed to Krystal's home. He tried to take her house. On paper. Signed documents. Legal forms. Filed with the intent to steal the roof over her head. Then there was the day he came to her house and barricaded her inside. Not metaphorically. Literally. He blocked the exits. Wouldn't let her leave. And told her calmly that he was going to end her life so their daughters could inherit the property. Like it was just a business move. Like he was discussing rent or the weather. Cold, emotionless, calculated. And then came something that not even her closest friends could believe at first. He crawled under her house. Literally. Slid under the crawl space, laid flat under the floorboards just to listen to her talk. Later he would bring up things she said word for word. Conversations she had inside her home. He used them to taunt her. To remind her that she wasn't safe anywhere. Not even inside her own house. And when Krystal told people, some couldn't believe it. Because who does that? Who crawls under a house to eavesdrop on the mother of their child? Tom did. All the while, Krystal kept speaking up. Posting. Writing everything down. Creating a paper trail so thick you could trip over it. She filed for protective orders. She submitted affidavits. She got written statements from witnesses. Family members. Friends. Neighbors. She wasn't just crying for help. She was building a legal case. But every time she turned something in, it felt like it disappeared into thin air. She waved the red flags. She rang every alarm. But somehow the world just shrugged. Like maybe it wasn't that serious. Like maybe she was just bitter. Or exaggerating. Even as the stalking got more aggressive. Even as the theft continued. Even as the threats got louder. Krystal did what we always tell women to do. Speak up. Document. Report it. And still, the people with the power to stop it stood still. By August 2024, Krystal Evans had done everything a person could possibly do to protect herself. She had filed reports. She had shared her truth online. She had gathered affidavits from friends and family. She had even had her house repainted, hoping new colors could give her back some kind of peace. And now, after years of being ignored, minimized, and pushed aside, she finally stood before a judge. She wasn't crying. She wasn't emotional. She was clear, firm, and determined. And she wasn't asking for favors. She was asking for protection. After laying out every threat, every break-in, every time she saw Tom sitting outside her home, she looked that judge in the eye and said, "He's going to hurt me." She didn't speak in riddles. She didn't hide behind polite words. She named her fear out loud in a courtroom. The judge granted her a permanent protective order. Tom was not allowed within 500 yards of her. It was official. Stamped and signed. Filed into the system. But Krystal wasn't celebrating. Because she knew what kind of man she was dealing with. A piece of paper wasn't going to stop him. So she asked the judge, "Can you arrest him? Right now? Please. He's dangerous." The answer? No. The judge said Tom could turn himself in. Later. At a time of his choosing. As if this was just a traffic violation. As if Krystal hadn't spent years screaming into the void. The system that had watched her suffer now told her to wait. So she walked out of that courtroom. Still breathing. still fighting, but completely unprotected. No escort, no safety. Just her and that folded piece of paper in her purse. 2 days later, on September 13, 2024, Krystal made a decision that confused some people. She went back to court. Tom had another hearing that morning. This one for forged documents and probation issues, including the mess he created trying to illegally transfer her property. Maybe she wanted to see him held accountable. Maybe she thought she'd be safer around law enforcement. After all, what could happen at a courthouse surrounded by deputies, judges, and officers? She didn't go alone. She brought her daughter Precious and a trusted friend. Strength in numbers. Stay close. Stay safe. But something changed during the hearing. Partway through, Precious had to leave. She had somewhere else to be. She hugged her mom, picked up her bag, and walked out. As the door closed behind her, Krystal's entire energy shifted. Her friend noticed. It was that feeling. That instinct. The one you can't explain but you've learned to trust. Krystal knew. Something was off. Her friend grew nervous and asked a court clerk, "Can someone walk my friend to her car?" A simple request. One deputy. Just a few minutes of safety. The response? No escort was provided. No one showed up. So Krystal waited. Let Tom leave first. Gave him time to clear the building. She even stalled a bit, chatting with her friend, lingering. Maybe hoping someone would offer help anyway. No one did. Eventually she stood up, held her purse close, said goodbye, and walked out the doors. Alone. It was just before noon in Griffin, Georgia. The parking lot outside the courthouse was busy. People walking in and out. Cars pulling in. A normal Friday morning. Security cameras captured her walking across the street toward her car. Calm, focused, trying not to show fear. But Tom was already there, sitting in his car, waiting, watching. She had no idea he never left, that he'd been in the lot this whole time, that he was watching that door, waiting for the exact moment she'd be alone. And when she stepped into the open, just feet away from her car, he stepped out, and then fired multiple shots at her in broad daylight. In front of the courthouse, people screamed, scattered, ran for cover. But Krystal couldn't run. She collapsed on the pavement, right there in the street. Tom got back in his car and drove away. But the thing about doing something like that outside a courthouse? There are cops everywhere. Deputies immediately jumped into their cars. The chase started. They followed him through town, sirens wailing. And as they closed in, as they surrounded his vehicle, Tom picked up the same weapon, turned it on himself, and pulled the trigger. But unlike Krystal, he lived. The bullet tore through his mouth and face, but it spared his life. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital. Doctors worked on him. They stitched, stabilized, and saved the man who had just stolen someone else's future. While he was being cared for, Krystal lay dead in a parking lot, face down, still gone. Her purse was still on her arm, her phone still in her hand. She had walked out of court with hope and never made it to her car. The same Spalding County Sheriff's Office that had ignored her cries for help suddenly had a lot to say. They issued a public statement claiming their hands were tied. They said no one had asked for an escort. They said no deputies had been notified. But Krystal's friend was there. She told the court staff. She asked for help. And no one came. Sheriff Darrell Dix, the man who had once dismissed her previous reports, told the media that this was a case of a toxic relationship. He said both parties had made complaints. He said witnesses didn't always line up. But people weren't buying it, because Krystal had been documenting the abuse for years. She'd shown her proof. She'd posted every threat, every warning, every silent cry. This wasn't just a relationship problem. This was a life or death situation, and nobody with power took it seriously. Her daughter, Precious, wasn't quiet either. She told news outlets like iHeart's Hunting for Justice that her mother had called the sheriff's office just one day before the shooting. She told them her mom had shown deputies the permanent protection order she was granted, and still nothing was done. Precious stood in front of cameras, with her mother's blood still fresh in the public memory, and said what so many others were thinking. If someone had just walked her out, she would still be here. The community exploded. People reposted her story. They lit candles. They wore shirts with her name. And all across social media the question repeated over and over. How much louder did she have to scream? How many videos did she have to post? How many court papers did she need? How many nights did she have to sleep in fear before someone believed her? The outrage wasn't just emotional. It was rooted in reality. Because this wasn't the first time someone warned the world and was ignored. But Krystal Evans was different. She left evidence. She left a timeline. She left no doubt. Every piece of her fear was documented. Every step of her pain was public. And still, she died in broad daylight, outside a courthouse. 2 days after she was told she was finally safe, Krystal Evans did everything right. She filed reports. She asked for protection. She brought receipts. She begged. And she still didn't make it home. If you think this can't happen again, it already has. Over and over again. The problem isn't that people don't speak up. The problem is that the people who should be listening aren't. This is Wedneessday Crime Gist, where we tell the stories that shouldn't exist. But they do. And unless something changes, they will keep happening. If you believe Krystal's voice matters, subscribe now. Share this video. Say her name. Krystal Evans deserved better. They all do.